soon so tar. A whole chemicals now the ras as in it is about to bull up rana still. You have any chefa as our grows and your grow. Yan ye people. Reverend Aquaba.
Yeah. I don't matter what you're saying.
So I didn't tell you about how many hours.
I just have me baha party me sim 4 o'clock. Me sim 4 o'clock. Seman sim 4 o'clock now say me here I go about 5 and cray na me di me overspeed answer na me to me do ha. Into traffic into or say me sim 4 o'clock na me do ha na matina car no matwe. Until from 4 o'clock now I was Kaswa. Adumara. Yo, that's it. Good evening, listeners, and thanks once again for receiving us in your homes with your heart's love as we continue in our studies of keys to the kingdom. As usual, it's our great pleasure. We all understand we are studying together. When we have shared our thoughts, you also have the opportunity to share your thoughts, and we also learn something from you. Thank you very much. Atiefo yana makunya esu echia obibia na yedamasi se enen so odo watu wo mofia betua ye adesua so na se ne kan de bia no de pass enya ade atum se yesua de enya kan de bia muso mu akunya se mu bekyere mu adwen na yensu yesua bibi afi mu debre se ne aye no ye beka brofo ne akantri enti se yesesemu na manya abutre amayen kakra ene yetua ye mkomo so yes here kanyansa ho asem ena yesua nyansa ho asem ma onwa esande kope galamse asem ebetu yenim efise se ya yeko ya de na se ade yenyan a ene na hia se ya nyansa na de agi ho afi emo eno na yekohwe se twemne nyina ne uta no ani se si tinini na ewo wakuma mu no ono ani onyame tinini a ewo wakuma mu no ono ani wo nyame ye behwe so na ya di nkita ho kakra. Listeners, we've been discussing the subject matter of wisdom, which took us all the way through to looking at how to perfect our world, and wisdom led us to Galamsey and the gold fever on Mercury, the planet Mercury, and we looked at how to handle this, which took us to looking at wisdom, and wisdom led us to the perfection of our hearts with the will of God, and therefore we have been looking at the subject or the title of the perfection in your heart is God. The perfect is God. Today I want us to do a little bit of digest on what we have done a few weeks. Just last week we talked about this perfection, and we talked about the law. We talked about the law being engraven in our hearts. We also talked about the scriptures, whatever is written in the scripture before us. In fact, we talked about whether there was a need at all to preach when the law has been engraven upon our hearts and minds. And we concluded that because of the density of this world, because of how much sin, it becomes necessary once a while for somebody to remind us, somebody to quicken us to realize that there are laws that govern the affairs of men, and that what we are seeing as good may not necessarily be good. So the law engraved in the hearts and minds of men. The reminder from our fellow men called preachers and so forth. And we say, when you are doing the will of God, then it means you are a perfect man. You are living in perfect, doing the will of God. You are living in perfection. Now, the question I want to open up to us for a digest today is, if doing the will of God brings perfection, how do you get to know what the will of God is before you do it? How do you get to know what the will of God is before you get to do it? Friends, I will be opening the too long time because I want you to share your thoughts on this for us to make sure we are sinking in to the understanding of what we are discussing. We are saying to showcase God in your life, you must showcase the will of God. How do you know what the will of God is? I'll give a little lead, but I can assure you that my lead is most likely to muddy the waters even the more. And I'll explain why from my perspective. The perfection in your life will be showcased by you doing the will of God. The way you can try to look at the will of God, which I'll give as a lead in one sense, adding the water the more, is to know the law. You need to know whatever laws God has established so that of God. As written laws, our Ghana laws, the United Nations have written regulations and policies. Are they the will of God? Written regulations, are they the will of God? Whatever you believe, in your belief system, there are do's and don'ts. If you are in my church, Church Universal and Triumphant, there are prescribed do's. Catholic Church and don'ts. If you worship any of our